Good morning and welcome to Business News on Sunrise. Coming up this morning, banks resist further participation in domestic debt exchange program.
The more they partake in debt exchange program, the more their capital is being eroded.
Also, General Secretary of Ghana Agriculture Workers Union says the threat of Galamsey on the cocoa industry is likely to make the increase in cocoa producer price ineffective.
The problem is not entirely solved in the sense that within the country, cocoa is also now competing with Galamsey.
Plus, a mining engineer, explosions in the mining sector could whittle away capital and investment in the sector.
Investors are so careful that if something like that happens, it can wipe out a lot on your stock.
My name is Menu Afo. We'll bring you the details of our headlines and many other stories shortly. Thank you for staying with us. In our first story, Ghana Association of Banks has declared that its member banks will not participate in any further domestic debt exchange program until they receive official communication from government regarding the conclusion of the existing exercise. The association fears any additional burden on banks could lead to the collapse of many banking operations. The government had previously reached an agreement with banks to restructure 15 billion cedis of locally issued US dollar bonds and cocoa bills, a pivotal condition for the IMFDU. Patrick Abankwaba is a financial analyst.
Already the existing one that we don't know whether has been concluded or not has brought a bit of low confidence in the sector. And the sector at this point is trying to recover. When you look at the deposit of banks over this year, you can see that the banks are gradually recovering from the low confidence that came up because of the debt exchange program. So a further participation will continue to hamper that confidence that is growing in the economy and the sector. Again, it will be very difficult for the banks to also raise capital in future. The more they partake in the debt exchange program, the more their capital is being eroded because of issues relating to provisions and accounting measurement. So that's also going to have an impact on them. And also the banks themselves, the more they continue to make losses because of the debt exchange program, the more it brings an issue of reputational damage.
You heard Patrick Abankwaba, a financial analyst. In more stories, concerns have been expressed by experts about the rising treasury bill rates in Ghana and its potential impact on the cost of credit and loan recovery for borrowers. The association mentioned that if the market rate for treasury bills continues to rise into the 30s and 40s percentage range, it would be difficult for both companies and households to borrow at such high rates and successfully repay their loans. Director of Business Operations at Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson, agrees with the Ghana Association of Bankers.
I urge this government, do it again. Reject the bids. You are oversubscribed. Oversubscribed means that you have more money than you need. Shouldn't the rates come down instead of going up? In any case, if they don't give you the money, what are the other avenues? Please, let's cut the rates. Let's reject these high bills. Let's stop loading the public purse with extra costs. Please.
You heard the voice of Joe Jackson, Director of Business Operations at Dalex Finance. Away from that, the General Secretary of Ghana Agriculture Workers Union, Edward Karewe, says the threat of Galamsey on the cocoa industry is likely to make the increase in cocoa producer price ineffective. He notes addressing the Galamsey menace is key in increasing cocoa production.
It will help them to be able to meet the high rising cost of living and so on. So that is good for them. The other thing that this increase may do is to probably bring prices of cocoa in Ghana apart with that of Cote d'Ivoire. Then it means that it may reduce smuggling to Cote d'Ivoire. I think what is a threat, a major concern to cocoa production in Ghana going into the future is galamsey. The problem is not entirely solved in the sense that within the country, cocoa is also now competing with galamsey. And if you look at the ruthless manner galamsey is encroaching on cocoa farms, price increase may not be sufficient.
He further suggests governments take steps to reduce the cost of cocoa production for farmers.
What I understand is that cocoa farmers are no more going to be given fertilizer subsidies, at their inputs and so on. They don't have to buy their own inputs and fertilizer. If that is the case, it means that the high cost of fertilizers and inputs would wipe out all the increment that has been given, about 60%, that has been given to farmers. If the cost of production has gone up so high, farmers will still not be happy that their cost of production swallows up the increment that has been given to them.
That was General Secretary of GAWU, Edward Karewe. We'll stay a while on the conversation about cocoa as government on Saturday raised the state guaranteed cocoa price paid to its farmers by more than 63%. This is an effort to boost their income and prevent beans being smuggled to neighboring countries where they fetch more money as supplies tighten. Speaking at the launch ceremony of the new cocoa season in the Western Tepa cocoa growing district, President Akufo-Addo said the new price was the highest paid to farmers across West Africa in more than 50 years.
The sustainability of the entire industry hinges on a well-remunerated producer who's willing to invest in business only with the certain that government will pay the appropriate price. The international market is beginning to pick up, and government, in keeping with our promise to our gallant cocoa farmers, has today increased cocoa prices from 12,800 cedis per ton to 20,943 cedis per ton, or 1,308 cedis per bag. That price is 70.5% of the gross FOB price and is equivalent to $1,821 per ton. It is the highest to be paid to cocoa farmers across West Africa in some 50 years.
You heard the voice of President Akufo-Addo. Meanwhile, Food and Agricultural Minister Brian Acheampong is worried the country's cocoa is under threat due to smuggling. This, he noted, has a negative effect on the entire economy as it denies the country the needed revenue. Brian Acheampong expressed optimism that the new price of cocoa from 800 cedis to 1,308 cedis forms part of a grand scheme of measures to tackle the canker.
There have been several reports of smuggling of cocoa from Ghana to our neighboring countries, and this has contributed adversely to the country's production capacity. The sad part of this unfortunate situation is that the individuals who are engaged in this nefarious act of smuggling are neither the farmers nor cocoa boards who have contributed to the production of the cocoa, but rather private merchants who regrettably contribute absolutely nothing to the country's production capacity. I only have one assurance to give to the nation. I will not disappoint Ghanaians in our quest to stop smuggling. I will not disappoint Ghanaians. Where I am from, we will say, Afi cocoa smuggling. Yebebe.
That was Food and Agriculture Minister Brian Acheampong. Away from that, a mining engineer, Theophilus Jimaga, is of the view explosions in the mining sector could whittle away capital and investment in the sector. This, he noted, will have negative impacts on investments and employment. Theophilus Jimaga comments come following an explosion at a quarry mining site in Anto Aboso in the Western region.
Any little thing that happens to a mining company, most of them are listed on the stock exchange in various countries. Investors are so careful that if something like that happens, it can wipe out a lot on your stock. So I feel that with this happening, mining companies will begin to ask questions of their service provider because they don't want collateral effect on them. Again, it means therefore that the mining companies themselves too will have to raise their safety precautions and safety measures a notch up. And it means that the amount of money they will use for safety measures would have been used for capital investment, but that is exhausted.
He further observed the country has not learnt from the Apiache explosion.
It's interesting that at this stage, we still have another scenario. Is it that we focus too much on transportation in Apiache, that we have not looked at storage of explosives? However, have we learned lessons? What are the lessons? What are the key findings from Apiache? The key findings, have they been made available for the industry? Have they been made available for the nation, for everybody to know? Again, you see a lot of explosive trucks on our way, on our roads. So I wonder if we have really learned lessons from Apiache. However, I feel that with this second one, the minister saying that the company has not been fully licensed. The company is either licensed or not licensed. We cannot have the midway, because my lecturer once said, when you are dealing with explosives, you have to be so careful that if you don't take that, you cannot live to tell the story.
You heard the voice of a mining engineer, Theophilus G. Maga. Now, the Western Regional Minister, Kwabena Okyere Darko Mensah, has told journalists that the company and center of explosion, formerly known as Omni Quarry, is not fully licensed to operate per his checks with the Minerals Commission. The regional minister has, however, assured that owners of the quarry will be brought to book, while pledging to intensify visits to both mining and quarry sites in the region to avert possible disasters.
My information is that the Minerals Commission has not gone through all the process with them. So now that we are doing an investigation, we should be able to catch up with the owners of the mine and then go forward, investigate, and see exactly what is happening. But I strongly believe that we need to intensify our inspections on all the mining sites that we have.
Western Regional Minister Kwabena Okyere Darko Mensah there. Now, Ghana's oil fields have experienced steady decline in imports for the past 3 years. Experts have called for review of the country's investment strategy in order to attract the needed investment into the sector. The coming on stream of the Jubilee South East well is a welcoming news. Though it is not a new oil field, it is expected to ramp up the production numbers. Dr. Yusuf Sulemana is CEO of Eureka Energy Solutions.
The estimation is that we can add about 30,000 barrels per stream day of oil. And that is huge. In fact, that would have meant that Jubilee will come back to its crown jewel status. And I think with this 30,000 addition, if it proves to be extractable in the amount that we estimated, then I think we would have gotten Jubilee back to 100,000 barrels of oil per stream day. And that would have been commendable, especially looking at the era where the upstream business is something churning out a lot of profit for producers. We are talking about oil prices not selling below 85. Oil had flirted around 90. And there's always a chance that we might have oil in the 80s to 90s for quite some time to come, even probably to the end of the year. So there couldn't be any other better time of, adding more oil to your production portfolio than now.
That was CEO of Eureka Energy Solutions, Dr. Yusuf Sulemana. Now take a listen to how the cedi is faring against major trading currencies and how some of our key commodities are faring on the global market.
On the interbank foreign exchange market, where banks trade amongst themselves, the dollar gained 1 pesewa and it is selling at 11 cedis 6 pesewas. The British pound also gained 1 pesewa, selling at 13 cedis 80 pesewas. The euro gained 1 pesewa and it is selling at 11 cedis 84 pesewas. However, be guided that these figures will be higher at a forex bureau near you. On the global commodities market, price of cocoa is up by 1.16%, selling at $3,654 per ton. Price of Brent crude oil is up by 0.81%, selling now at about $91 per barrel. while the price of an ounce of gold is down by 0.03%, selling at about $1,919.
That was an update from the Forex and Commodities markets. That will be all for Business News on Sunrise. My name is Menu Afo. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Stay tuned. Sports News is up next.
For another cultural explosion like never before on 21st September.